Um, okay, let's unpack this. I want you to picture, just for a second, the quintessential rock anthem.
Oh, I can picture it.
Right. I'm talking about the kind of track that plays in a massive stadium. Loud guitars, a really driving beat, the kind of song that basically makes you want to run headfirst through a brick wall. When you hear that, what's the theme? What is the guy on stage usually screaming about?
Well, usually excess,
Yeah.
rebellion, or, I mean, if we're being completely honest, a really messy, self-destructive breakup.
Yeah.
The history of rock and roll is, it's practically paved with themes of alienation or the much darker side of the party lifestyle. It's almost always about burning out, not fading away.
Right. It's this whole me against the world trope. But what if I told you that one of the absolute most interesting tracks we've come across lately for this deep dive is a high-octane rock anthem that actually doubles as a scientifically grounded manual for mental health recovery?
Which, on the surface, sounds like a massive contradiction. I mean, you don't usually look to the mosh pit for a lesson in neurobiology.
You really don't. But that is exactly what we have today. So we are looking at a track called The Safety Net by the artist Ti-Fi.
Yeah.
And on the surface, if you just happen to catch it on the radio, it's a total banger. It's got that undeniable victory song energy. But when you peel back the layers, which is exactly our mission for this deep dive today, you realize it's not just music, it is a blueprint.
And a really incredibly detailed one at that. What I love about what we're doing today is the source material we're working with, because we aren't just sitting here interpreting the lyrics in a vacuum, guessing what she meant.
No, we have the actual receipts.
Right. We have access to this fascinating writer's room breakdown that Ti-Fi released alongside the track, plus the liner notes.
I was reading through those notes earlier, and it's just fascinating. She essentially steps completely out of the vocal booth to explain the mechanics of the music.
Yeah. She's literally treating the song as a vehicle for these biological concepts. And the tone she sets in those notes is vital context for us, because she explicitly says she didn't want to write just another standard rock song about being misunderstood or heartbroken.
Right. She said those are valid emotions, sure, but they leave you stuck in the problem.
Exactly. She wanted to write about the solution.
She calls it gritty. That's the exact word that stuck out to me in the liner notes. She talks about the totally unglamorous work of building a support system. So buckle up, because we are about to deconstruct the biology of a rock anthem.
Let's get into it.
I want to start exactly where the song starts, which is this trap of isolation. The opening lyrics paint this really vivid, honestly almost claustrophobic picture.
It really is.
She sings about playing a lonely version of the social game and counting numbers. And then there's this specific line about life feeling like a single lane.
That image, that single lane, is so powerful because it perfectly describes the perception shift that happens during a mental health crisis. In her breakdown, Ti-Fi explains that whether it's burnout, depression, or severe trauma, the very first thing that happens to you is that your world shrinks.
You just get absolute tunnel vision.
You do. It feels like you are the only car on the road.
And even worse, you start to feel like you should be the only car on the road, like you deserve to be there.
Yes. And here is where I think the artist offers a really nuanced take on human psychology. She notes in the sources that this isolation isn't just a sad side effect. It's actually a deeply ingrained survival mechanism.
No, I got totally stuck on that line in the notes. Why on earth would isolation be a survival mechanism? I mean, we're social creatures. If we're in trouble, shouldn't our biological instinct be to scream for help?
Well, you would think so, right? But evolutionary speaking, when an animal is wounded, it hides. It pulls inward to protect itself from predators because it is in a state of extreme vulnerability.
Oh, that makes sense.
So when we are in emotional pain, we essentially do the exact same thing. We pull up the drawbridge, we retreat to that single lane just to conserve energy and avoid any further threat.
So it's basically a hardcore defense strategy.
It is, but Ti-Fi points out the tragic paradox here. In the modern world, especially for mental health, it is a fundamentally flawed mechanism.
Because it completely cuts you off from the actual cure.
Precisely. You pull away to stay safe, but in doing so, you cut off the exact resources you need to heal. You create this terrible self-fulfilling prophecy where you really are alone because you've built all these walls to protect yourself from the chaos.
You think you're shielding yourself, but you're actually just starving yourself of human connection.
You're starving.
So how does the song actually get us out of that single lane? Because there's this really deliberate shift in the lyrics right after that, where she sings about waking up and seeing the map.
Right, this is the cognitive shift she talks about. She actively contrasts that isolated single lane with a bustling city street.
Mm.
The realization here is that you aren't existing in a vacuum. You are part of an ecosystem.
I really love that word, ecosystem. It makes it sound so much bigger and more vital than just, having some friends.
Well, it changes the framework entirely. Recovery isn't a solitary sprint, as she puts it in the notes. It's a community garden. And the fascinating thing she points out in the writer's room breakdown is that the raw materials for this net, they're almost always already there.
Right. I have the list right here. She explicitly lists them out: neighbors, coworkers, bandmates.
They're all just waiting to be recognized. The structure is there. But when you're trapped in that single lane mindset, that primal survival mode we just talked about, you literally cannot see the bridges connecting you to them.
Your brain just filters them out entirely.
It does. You have to consciously choose to recognize the network before you can even begin to lean on it.
Okay, so step one is just seeing the map, just opening your eyes to the street. But then the song takes this really hard left turn into, well, honestly, it sounds like a biology class.
It really does dive straight into the deep end of the science here.
Yeah, there's a chorus where she literally sings the word oxytocin. I don't think I have ever heard a rock song drop a specific neurohormone as a lyric before, and she calls it the active ingredient.
This is where the whole deep dive aspect of the song really shines funny. She isn't just using oxytocin as some vague, poetic metaphor for love or romance. She is talking about it clinically as a biological shield.
A biological shield. I mean, that sounds like something straight out of a sci-fi movie. What exactly does she mean by that in the notes?
To understand the shield, we really have to look at what it's actively blocking. When you are in that state of isolation, that chronic fight-or-flight mode, your body is constantly flooded with cortisol and adrenaline.
Just pumping through you.
Yes, your nervous system is essentially redlining. It's constantly revving the engine, just frantically looking for threats everywhere.
Which is so exhausting. I think everyone listening right now has felt that specific kind of burnout where you're just profoundly tired down to your bones.
And it's physically damaging over time.
Yeah.
It wears down your cardiovascular system. It wrecks your immune system. Ti-Fi explains that human connection is the literal antidote to this.
Mm-hmm.
Meaningful connection triggers the release of oxytocin. And oxytocin isn't just, the cuddle hormone.
Right, it's not just a warm, fuzzy feeling.
No, it physically lowers your heart rate.
Yes.
It lowers your blood pressure. It chemically tells the body to stand down.
So hanging out with a friend isn't just a nice thing to do for your mood. It's an actual physical intervention.
It is a biological imperative. The artist notes that oxytocin sends a direct signal to the amygdala, which is the fear center of your brain, saying, hey, we are not under attack right now.
That's a huge distinction. It's like an all-clear signal for your body.
Exactly. When she calls it a magic trick in the lyrics, she's referring to that incredibly rapid shift from high alert to total safety. It turns off the stress response before it can make you physically sick. It effectively hijacks your panic response and just shuts it down.
Now, there's a specific term mentioned heavily in the source material called co-regulation, and I feel like that ties in here perfectly, but it's honestly a bit of a jargon-heavy word. Can we break that down for everyone listening?
Of course, because it's completely central to this whole concept. Think of co-regulation like a literal battery jumpstart. When your nervous system is haywire, when you're in the middle of a panic attack, your internal emotional battery is totally drained.
You're running on empty.
You are. And you cannot just calm down by willing it to happen.
Yeah.
Your cognitive brain, the logical part that makes decisions, is completely offline.
So telling yourself to just relax or having someone else tell you to calm down is basically useless?
Oh, it's worse than useless. It's incredibly frustrating. But co-regulation is the scientific idea that you can bring your chaotic, dysregulated nervous system near someone else's calm nervous system, and yours will naturally biologically sync up with theirs.
Wow.
You literally borrow their calm.
That is just such a relieving thought. You don't have to be the one to fix it inside your own head every single time. You can literally outsource the emotional regulation to a friend.
Right. Ti-Fi makes a really great point in the breakdown.
Yeah.
You cannot always think your way out of a panic attack, but you can connect your way out.
Okay, so we know the why now. Our brains are starving for oxytocin, and we desperately need to co-regulate. But the song pivots here because just knowing the brain chemistry doesn't actually help you when your car breaks down. We have to move from the microscope down to the street view.
We absolutely need the logistics.
Right, and the song breaks this down into two distinct pillars of support. The first pillar is hidden in this lyric about getting a flat tire on a Tuesday.
Such a classic mundane inconvenience.
It really is. She sings about knowing exactly who to call in that moment. And the sources identify this specifically as instrumental support.
And we really shouldn't underestimate this one. We tend to deeply romanticize support, thinking it always has to be this heavy, deep emotional processing.
Right.
But instrumental support is completely tangible.
Right.
It's the friend who actually shows up to help you move a heavy couch. It's the coworker covering your shift so you can finally go to therapy.
Or even just the person dropping off groceries at your door when you just can't face the lights of the supermarket.
Exactly. Ty-Fi points out something really insightful here about how we handle crises. She says we often over-intellectualize recovery. We convince ourselves that we need these profound, tearful breakthroughs every day to heal.
It's like every single interaction has to be this deep soul-searching session where we cry on someone's shoulder.
But honestly, sometimes you just need someone to help you change a literal tire so you don't break down on the side of the road. That tangible help keeps your daily life running so you actually have the mental space to heal.
It lowers the practical stress load so you can eventually deal with the emotional load.
Precisely.
But then you absolutely need the second pillar, right? Because she directly contrasts the flat tire lyric with a line about when the night gets heavy.
Right, and that's emotional support.
The sources describe this very specifically as a safe harbor.
That is such a beautiful way to put it. A safe harbor is a place where you do not have to perform. You don't have to be the strong one or the competent one or even the funny one.
You can just be the messy one for a minute.
You can walk in and say, hey, things are really terrible right now, and the other person doesn't immediately try to fix it. They don't judge you. They just hold the space for you to exist.
And the synthesis here, the real expert take from the artist's breakdown, is that a true safety net absolutely requires both of these types of threads.
Yes. And this is so crucial for anyone listening today who is actively trying to build their own net. You do not need one single person to be everything.
I think we make that mistake all the time.
All the time. We find one best friend or a romantic partner, and we expect them to be the one to change the tire and flawlessly talk us through our deepest trauma.
That is a massive amount of pressure to put on one human being. Just walking up and saying, hey, can you help me move this sofa and also perfectly process my childhood fears at the same time?
It's a total recipe for burnout for both people involved.
Yeah.
You need a diverse circle, as the lyrics say. You have your flat tire friends who are amazing in a practical crisis, but maybe get awkward around feelings. And then you have your heavy night friends.
And sure, sometimes they overlap, but they absolutely don't have to.
They don't.
I think that frees us up a lot. It makes the actual work of building the net feel so much less daunting. You aren't looking for a savior. You're just looking for different threads to weave together.
It brings us right back to that ecosystem idea. Diversity is what makes the whole system resilient. If one person isn't available, the net still holds your weight.
Now, I want to totally pivot to the underlying philosophy of the song because the bridge really takes a massive swing at modern culture. There's this intense pushback against the crowd versus the net.
Oh, absolutely. She talks about stadiums full of people and our complete obsession with follower counts.
Because in the age of social media, that's the currency, right?
Yeah.
But Ty-Fi argues in the notes that this doesn't actually help you when things get dark.
Not at all. She introduces a psychological concept called cognitive reserve. And I really want to create a clear picture of this for you. Think of cognitive reserve exactly like a savings account, but for your brain.
Okay, so it's my emotional rainy day fund.
Exactly. It's the buffer you have against stress. Now, Ty-Fi argues that superficial connections, the likes, the views, the distant acquaintances you never really talk to, they're basically like monopoly money.
Oh, that's a great analogy.
They look like wealth. You can stack them up on your profile and feel incredibly popular. But when a real crisis hits, when you go into a personal recession, you cannot spend them. They don't hold any actual value in the real world.
They're just noise.
They're totally just noise. As she says in the breakdown, you cannot be radically authentic with a crowd of 1,000 people. And without that vulnerability, without authenticity, you do not get that oxytocin release we talked about earlier.
You just don't get the biological safety.
You don't.
So the 1,000 likes on a post will never catch you when you fall, but 3 really solid friends who know your flaws might.
That is the exact math of it. It is entirely quality over quantity. Deep connection actively builds the cognitive reserve. Wide, shallow connection just spends your attention without giving anything back.
Now, there's another phrase in the bridge that I really want to dig into, and honestly, I think this might be the most important part of the entire song. She sings about a reciprocal, real deal plan. That word reciprocal, it feels really heavy in this context.
It is the absolute key to the net sustainability. A safety net only works if the tension goes both ways.
But wait, play devil's advocate with me here for a second. If I'm the one in a crisis, if I'm the one who's completely depressed or burnt out, how on earth can I be reciprocal? Isn't the whole point that I'm the one who needs help? Honestly, I usually feel like a burden just asking for it.
That burden narrative is incredibly common. It's so insidious. We tell ourselves, I have nothing to give right now, I'm just taking and taking. But Ti-Fi explains what she calls the recovery arc.
Okay.
In the immediate moment of crisis, yes, you absolutely lean on the net. But as you start to heal, as you slowly build up that emotional bank account we just talked about, you start holding the net for others.
So it's not just about taking forever. You eventually shift roles.
You do. But here is where it gets really profound, and I want everyone listening to really hear this part. The expert insight from the liner notes is that this reciprocity is actually how your self-worth is rebuilt.
Wait, really explain that. Helping other people heals me.
Think about the mechanics of it. When you are deeply depressed, the internal narrative is almost always, I am useless, I am totally broken, or I am a drain on everyone around me.
Yeah, you feel like a liability.
Exactly. But the very first moment you hold the net for someone else, even in a tiny mundane way, like being the one to bring them groceries, you prove that dark narrative mathematically wrong.
Because you're proving your utility. You're proving you matter.
You realize, oh, wait, I am not just a burden. I am a contributing, vital member of this community. I have real value. That realization is massive for someone recovering from mental illness. It completely flips the script from I need saving to I am capable of saving.
It changes the entire narrative from I am hopelessly broken to I am a load-bearing part of the structure.
I am part of the structure bridging every single gap, to directly quote the lyrics. That active role is exactly what restores your fundamental human dignity.
Man, that is so good. It really redefines what it means to be a friend. It's highly active. It's not just sitting around talking. It's literal structural engineering for the soul.
It is incredibly active.
Yeah.
And that brings us perfectly back to the vibe of the song itself.
Right. Because we started by talking about it being this massive rock anthem. Ti-Fi deliberately calls it a victory song.
Yes. And that tempo is deliberate. She says the profound realization that you do not have to do life alone is exhilarating.
It really is.
It's high energy. It's not some slow, sad ballad about being lonely in your room. It is a loud celebration of finding your people.
It's that feeling of, man, I'm easier, my heart beats slow, just like the lyrics say. But it's set to this driving tempo that makes you want to move. It feels completely triumphant.
And this is the ultimate call to action, embedded right there in the music.
Yeah.
It requires serious work.
Yeah.
The victory only comes after the construction phase.
The gritty work we started with.
You have to weave the net before you fall. That is the absolute core message I'd want listeners to take away today.
You literally cannot wait until the crisis hits to start making friends.
It is infinitely harder to do it then. When you're in the crisis, you're back in that single-lane tunnel vision. You literally do not have the cognitive energy to build. You have to send the text today. You have to make the call on a random Tuesday when you don't actually need anything.
You have to be the one to proactively offer the ride or ask if they need an ear. It's a daily, gritty practice of maintenance.
Exactly like tending that community garden. If you don't water it when the sun is out, the food simply won't be there when you're starving.
It really completely changes how I look at my contact list on my phone. It's not just a list of names anymore. It's a literal survival kit.
It's a biological necessity. It is as vital to your health as your sleep schedule or your diet.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into the safety net, I'm really left thinking about that final shift in perspective. We so usually think of our social circles as an audience, right? People to perform for.
Oh, especially right now. We constantly curate our lives for them.
But if we completely stop viewing them as an audience and we start viewing them as a biological requirement, literally like water or oxygen, how does that completely change who you choose to invest your time in today?
That is the real question. If your actual survival depended on it, which, as we've learned today, it biologically kind of does, who makes the cut? Who is holding the other side of that net for you?
And are you actually holding it for them?
That's the real question.
Definitely something for you to think about the next time you're just mindlessly scrolling through your phone or feeling that familiar urge to pull back into the single lane.
The map is always bigger than you think.
It sure is. Thanks for exploring the biology of a rock anthem with us today. It's been a truly wild ride.
A pleasure as always.
Catch you on the next deep dive.